Another girl. Hello, we are live. Hi, we are live. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to day 4 of From Health to Happiness. We are on interview uh, 3 today. I don't even remember. I think this is interview 3. Yes, I have one more. So this is interview 3, day 4. It has been an incredible 4 days. I don't know if you guys have caught any of them or all of them the lives up to this point, but there's been some incredible stories, some really brave women. And I'm actually really honored that they volunteered for this to share their stories because some of these stories are pretty tragic. So, really brave women who've come on and shared their stories of trauma, and then healing. So I'm just overwhelmed. Um, I feel so blessed to have these women, in my life and volunteer to do this. So it's been an incredible journey, and I hope you all have been following along. Right now, we have Charlene, and I've known Charlene for, I've probably known you for quite a few years. I think
Yeah.
just in the Facebook group, online entrepreneur sort of business. Um, we've never actually talked or met in person. This is the first time, but I follow her. I follow her on Instagram and all. Oh, there's your dog. Hi,
I,
Buffin. So I've been following Charlene and her journey. And Charlene has an incredible story. So, welcome, Charlene, and thank you very much for being here and for volunteering to do this. Charlene is going to be talking to us about her alcoholism, and how she was with drug addiction, then that led to alcoholism, her journey through there, and then her healing. So, thank you again, Charlene. And please just, how about we just start? And because you mentioned earlier that it's actually started with drugs. So why don't we just go back to there and let us know how that and lead us through the story?
okay. So I grew up in a pretty average middle class town neighborhood. Um, my mom stayed at home. My dad was a contractor. It was the days when the kids kind of just went outside in the morning and came home at supper time. We didn't have a lot of supervision. Life was pretty good for the most part. I do, looking back, realize that there were alcoholics surrounding me everywhere. The neighbors, the people that lived in the houses around me. There was alcohol being used regularly. So that's kind of what I saw. Um, my father was a contractor, so in that field, there's a lot of partying, drinking going
Yep.
on after the job. They work hard all day. The mindset was you go out at dusk and you work till dark. There wasn't a lot of family time spent doing, um, fun things, time off like
Right.
that. It was all about trying to keep things afloat, try to keep things going. I did have some wonderful memories from my childhood. I did, however, have some sexual abuse when I was younger from a
Okay.
neighbor, and I buried that until I was 40 years old.
Oh my God.
Um,
You
I,
ever
I
told anybody?
I never told anybody about that. I I was about 11, like on the cusp of 11 when it happened. And
Wow.
it only happened a couple times, like 3 times or something like that. And then that person was literally gone. Like they were in the neighborhood and then they were gone. Um,
Holy
and
crap.
I just, like, I internalized that. Like I thought it was my fault. All the things, it's a secret. You don't tell anybody that somebody did that, like, so I buried that. And, not too long after that, I started to smoke pot, hang out with the other kids that have had low self-esteem and troubled childhoods, and just not the ability to function and to um, advocate for myself.
think we
Um,
all at that time we all gravitated towards each other. Right? It was like we had like this magnet on our forehead. I'm broken. Are you broken too? Let's all be friends and hang around and smoke weed and be rebels. That was the norm back then.
yeah,
Yeah, totally. Sorry, carry on.
yeah. So by seventh and eighth grade, I was smoking pot daily. I was even doing like psychedelics and things like that.
Real Lord.
Um, I hid it, of course. I never did that stuff at home around my house. I did at school, so my parents wouldn't know. Because there were swift consequences at home.
Right.
Whenever I got in trouble, I literally was probably grounded for most of my teenage years. But by the time I was 15 years old, I was dating somebody who was 24. And yeah, I started to do cocaine.
Okay.
And I was in that relationship. It was abusive. It was just toxic, and I did cocaine and I smoked pot. Did it a lot, was addicted to it. By the time I turned 21, I was done with the abuse. I was done with the cocaine. I was like, I can't do this anymore. I can't be with this person anymore. And I pretty much just, I'm a Scorpio rising. So I cut that cord as quick
Good
as I
girl.
could after, I made that decision, and I walked away and didn't look back.
Good girl.
Yeah. So, and despite, when those toxic relationships end, sometimes there's a lot of hanging on and trying to get back to things. And I just shut
Yes.
the door.
Good girl.
And I did what I needed to do for me at the time. And so then I started drinking because I turned 21. It all happened within weeks. Like we broke up. I stopped the cocaine. I started drinking. I started hanging out with my girlfriends, going to clubs, having fun. I stayed single for a couple of years and really gave myself a chance to heal then.
Good.
And I think it was probably more of being too scared to get hurt again. You get
Sure.
into that whole thing where you really shut down your whole energy system, and you just don't want to get that punch in the face again,
Yeah,
really.
for sure. Absolutely. Yeah.
Right.
Uh-huh.
So there were a lot of really hard times that I was trying to get over from that. And I met somebody. I had a relationship. We ended up getting married, having kids. My drinking continued. I was a party girl, like at the restaurant every Friday night, having drinks, coming down from the week, trying to get out and have some fun, even though I had kids. Got to the point where we had a sleepover babysitter for those nights, and some of those nights I crawled up the stairs.
Really?
My kids
Wow.
were in bed, and I was in my 30s and 40s, and the purpose was to get drunk. Anytime I went out to a party, a wedding, out to dinner, that was my purpose.
So were you drinking daily by then?
I wasn't a daily drinker ever, really.
Okay.
And that's kind of important because that's what everybody thinks an alcoholic drinker is, or somebody who drinks too much, that they drink every day, they drink in the morning. I was never that. But I couldn't stop after 2,
Right.
I
Right.
didn't want to stop after 2.
And you know what's funny? See, my ex was like that because he was very responsible Monday to Friday. He was self-employed, so he worked hard Monday to Friday, and he would usually check out at work at about noon. And as soon as noon hit, that right upstairs grabs, and he used to buy like an almost 2 liter jug of rye. So 1.75 liter jug of rye, and he would start drinking Friday at noon and he would stop Sunday at 7:30, 8 o'clock, and then he wouldn't drink the rest of, then he was good. But he, every weekend, he would be drunk every
Yeah.
weekend. And he was like, I'm not an alcoholic. Well, you kind of are. Yeah. Just because you don't drink every day doesn't mean you're not an alcoholic. You kind of are. So, yeah, that's a very good point to mention that, because people think, I only drink on the weekends. I'm not an alcoholic. Well,
Yeah.
you
And
know,
I, and nowadays, it's the mommy wine culture. There was a lot of that going on too,
sure.
um, just to blow off the steam. That, like, I can remember we called it the witching hour,
Right.
like in between the late afternoon and dinner time and the kids and everything. So we had kids and everything, and I thought it would be a great idea to get a camper and go camping and get in a campground, have a permanent place for the kids to kind of enjoy the summer,
Sure.
but also not to have to drive anywhere, and to freely be able to drink and all of that. So I did that for probably about eight years, maybe.
Did you ever at any time think that you were an alcoholic?
It never really crossed my mind,
No, eh?
you know,
Okay.
even, there were some near misses, with, there was one time that I drove, and I couldn't see the road.
Oh my God.
And I really believe now that the people that I was with, I know that they didn't have my best intentions. It was a very good friend of mine, and I left my water and used the bathroom before I drove home, because I had to get home for my daughter's cheerleading at 7 a.m. the next morning.
Oh my
Like, I
God.
needed to be bringing her to that. So I was intent on going home. I left my water bottle. I went in the bathroom. I came out. I was pretty good. I got in the car, and I don't know, halfway home, all of a sudden I couldn't see. I don't know if somebody put something in my water or what, but it was very scary.
Yeah.
And things were going downhill for a long time in my marriage. And that wasn't just me. That's always two people
Yeah.
involved in that. And
Absolutely.
we were ending things, and I couldn't see myself on the other side of it. Some really, horrible things happened. Lost some friends, had to cut other friends off. And I had one night where I couldn't go on. I was like, I can't see. Something really traumatic happened. I found some news out that was just heart-wrenching. And I decided that I was going to take my own life. I got a gallon of Stoli vodka, and I had a bottle of, what were they? Not the Percocets, but the other ones that everybody gets addicted to.
I don't know.
I can't even think of what the name is, but I had a bottle of those out, and I went into the barn in the backyard, and I wrote 4 notes. I wrote notes to my kids. I wrote 4 notes saying goodbye. And I was drinking, and I had taken a couple pills, but I still hadn't taken the rest of the bottle. There were probably about 30 pills in the bottle. And I had to go to the bathroom. And I think back to this now, and I'm like, if I was gonna die, I'm gonna pee my pants anyway, right? So I should have just, like, big deal. But I was like, I'm gonna go in the house and go to the bathroom and come back out here. And I walked out of the barn, and it was winter time. It was that was about December. It was maybe the beginning of December, the end of November. And I was walking towards the house, and I could feel a presence with me. I knew that I wasn't alone. And I believe it was an angel to this day. I'm like, there was a presence with me, and whether it's God or an angel or my higher self, whatever you want to call it, I kind of said out loud into the air, I'm not going to go back out there tonight. And I went in the house and I just went to bed and I slept it off. And the next morning I went back out there, and being the good little Virgo I am, I cleaned up the mess. I threw everything out. I burnt the letters, threw them in the dumpster, like, and I hid it. I didn't tell anybody about that. And life went on. The divorce was going on, all the other stuff was going on. And then I was experiencing gaslighting too. So like I was going through a lot of confusion. I didn't know what was true, what was false, what was made up. And I couldn't sort all that out. So something pretty substantial happened. The police came to the house. They're like, you're, my ex was calling me crazy. And, that happens sometimes with narcissists.
Yep. Yeah.
And
we know.
yeah. So the police convinced me to go to the psych ward at the hospital.
Oh, wow. Good.
So, yeah. So I went, and they brought me to the emergency room. And in the emergency room, one of the people, the nurses, he asked me, have you had suicidal thoughts? And I said, yes. And he's like, when did you have suicidal thoughts? And I was like, I don't know, probably a month ago or something. And they admitted me because of that. So I ended up spending 10 days in the psych ward.
Okay.
And while I was there, they bring in the AA meetings and all that. And, I was taking part in all the classes, the groups and stuff. But before that, there was a group on self-esteem. And she started the group, and she said, I want you to write down 2 people that would have something good to say about you. And I couldn't even name anybody. That's how low I was. Like at that point, I felt like I had nobody. I felt like I had been cut away from everybody. I had been betrayed by like my best friend, my ex, like,
Hey, that's sad.
I was in that low point where I just didn't think that I had any sustainable relationships. And I just sat there and cried the whole time. I cried for an hour in that class, in that group. And then I decided that, maybe I drank a little too much. Maybe I'll go to that AA meeting there. And I listened to their stories, and, I resonated with the feelings that they have. And so I went to them, they brought them in daily. I went to them daily. One of them, there was only about 3 of us in the meeting, and there was mixed company. It was males and females, a couple of females. And that's the day that I released my trauma. And I said that I had been sexually abused when I was younger. So that's the first time I had ever told anybody. I told my mother.
How'd that make you feel?
To tell that?
Yeah.
I mean, in one way, it was very like embarrassing, but in another way, it was, like I'm this victim, like I'm this victim, and this is part of the reason why I drank and I did drugs. Because back when I was a teenager, I was a bad kid because I was doing drugs. Nobody ever asked why I might be doing those things.
Right. We just did them.
Yeah, we just did them because yeah.
It was our escapism. We had to do drugs. We just did them. So it must have been really liberating though, like finally telling somebody, oh, by the way, this happened to me. Like it must have been just a big whoosh, it's out, like it's finally out. And let's see where, what's going to happen with like that. There must have been a lot of freedom in that, in releasing
Yeah.
that. I bet.
Yeah. There
I
was,
bet.
and that gave me the freedom to tell my mother too,
And how'd
because she had
she,
no idea.
and how'd that go?
She had no idea. And I'm like, how did you not, like, because there was an incident back then when he sexually abused me. I have written on a notebook that I hated him. And my parents
Mm,
found that, and they were questioning me. Why did you write that? Why did you write you hate him? And I did the teenage, I don't know. I just hate him,
right.
and now I'm like, how could they never like suspect? He
Right.
was 35 years old and I was 11 or 10 and a half.
Wow. What
Like,
had he done that to other women though? He must have done that to
I
other kids.
I have no idea, but I look it like he came over after my mother pulled out of the driveway. So he was watching her leave and then come over and ask for a tool or
Right.
that my father had or whatever.
Right.
Um, so
Wow.
yeah, so I told my mother that, and I talked about things, and I learned at that point that I needed to ask for help. My mother stayed with me for 2 months,
Nice.
and so because my ex, he got full custody while I was in the hospital,
Oh, okay. Yeah.
so like
Right.
my kids, losing my marriage, all my life was burning down.
Yeah. It was pretty close to rock bottom, I'd say, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Wow.
even though I was in an upscale situation, my mindset was
Yeah.
in a rock bottom place.
Right.
Like I
Wow.
couldn't salvage anything, or I didn't think I could. So then I started going, they said you have to go to meetings every day. When you get out of the hospital, go to your first meeting, go 90 and 90. I listened to all they were telling me because I was scared, I didn't want to lose my life. I didn't want
Right.
to lose my kids. I didn't want to lose anything.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I for the first time in my life, I grabbed that rope and let somebody pull me in the boat, kind of
Good. Good.
come with us or whatever. I started to learn about how to take care of myself, like mentally, physically, emotionally. I was going to the gym all the time too, right before I got sober. And I had cleaned up my eating.
Good
And I think
girl.
that really helped me to kick the habit a
Right.
lot easier. I didn't have the cravings because I wasn't eating sugar. I wasn't eating sugar at all. And then I
Right.
removed the alcohol, and I was doing the things that I needed to really detox my body. So I
Awesome.
think
Did
that
you did you relapse at all or did you stay the course? Really?
never relapsed.
Oh, I love that. Good for you.
So
Because that's a possibility, right? That happens a lot.
that happens to a lot of people. Yeah.
Yeah, good for you. So your healing journey basically I mean, it was almost you were forced into a healing journey because you ended up in the psych ward, the
Mhm.
hospital, and then they said they pretty much escorted you to an AA meeting, like, here you go, you need to go here. So your healing journey was almost forced on you, but in a good way. So what other things did you was part of your healing? Because I know AA is monumental in helping alcoholics because I've had experience in Al-Anon and with alcoholics. So what other tools did you have to help you with your sobriety to stay besides AA to stay on track and build your self-esteem back up and your self-respect and all that stuff? What kind of things did you do, Charlene, to help you heal and grow?
Mm. Well, the first thing is I was diagnosed with depression and anxiety when
Mm,
I was in the psych ward, and I was put on Wellibutrin and Seroquel
okay.
to help with anxiety, to help me deal with the depression, and it helped immensely. But I also knew I don't want to stay on medication for the rest of my life.
Right.
And you know, the same with the AA meetings. There were things that I was hearing there right from the beginning that I was like, I don't think that's a healthy mindset.
Mm,
So I really started to gather some more eggs for my basket
okay.
because I didn't want them all in the AA basket. I
Yeah.
didn't want them all in the medication
Yeah.
basket. I wanted a variety of tools to
Good
build a
girl.
program for myself. So I was reading daily. I was reading inspirational quotes. I was looking at Facebook pages with inspirational quotes, and that's, how we met. And I was also learning everything I could about addiction, the things that people use to try to stay healthy, diet and exercise. I was going to yoga, learning about yoga, the
Good
chakra
girl.
system,
Good
breath work.
girl. You did a lot. You were
Yes,
determined to heal.
yeah.
Good.
Meditation groups, which ended up opening me up to spirituality even more so than saying the Lord's Prayer at the end of
Right.
a AA
A
meeting.
meeting. Right. Right. Right.
You know, I was
Wow.
learning how to use my intuition and allowing myself to open to that, um, accepting my beliefs. I was a recovering Catholic,
Okay.
um, so to speak. So, accepting that that was okay and that I could define my own God. I could define, working with the angels, asking them for help, or just using present moment times. I read a
Right.
lot of Thich Nhat Hanh at the beginning of
Okay.
my
Yeah.
journey. He had poems and things like that that really resonated with me. And I could see myself within those poems. I read them, and there's one, The River and the Clouds or something like that. And when I read that, that was so early in my sobriety. And that was like, that was me. Like he was talking about me, like not
Yeah.
seeing the clear sky within myself, only
Right.
seeing the clouds and the dark days and the negativity. Um, One of the things that I wrote about early was the inner critic, you
Okay.
know, and learning how to shut that down and turn on self-love. Um,
Were you
and
into any of that at all before your sobriety, like spirituality or anything like that?
um,
Nothing, eh?
nothing. I was a keep up with the Joneses,
Right, right,
like
right. Weren't we
I'm
all? I think we all were.
yeah, I'm trying to keep the house looking beautiful and entertaining people, having big
Right.
parties at Christmas time, and driving the right car and making sure the kids looked great and that they were well behaved and things like that. That's the things that I concentrated on.
Right.
Um, and
What a life, eh?
yeah, I never looked internally. Um,
Huh.
so those were some of the things. And then, I I started to learn a lot about subconscious programming too,
Okay. Hmm.
and hypnosis,
Oh, good.
using hypnosis to kind of clear your subconscious mind, learn new habits of thoughts. Because, that's one of the things with being an addict is always going back to the old patterns and the old thought patterns and
Yeah.
who you are and who you
Yeah.
are as an alcoholic and who you are when you're sober. Um,
Yeah.
because
And I'm
that
sure
is
there's little triggers throughout the day. I mean, not every day, but there's going to be little triggers that pop up, right? That bring you back to those years when I used to be a drug addict or I used to be an alcoholic, and every now and again some little trigger will show up and you're like, whoa, okay, I'm not that person anymore. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Um, yeah, because your persona is how you live your life, how
Yeah.
you see your life, and how people see you and how you perceive them seeing you.
Yeah.
You know, and you can really get stuck in that. Um, Getting sober, I got sober January 15th, 2008. And
Okay. So what did you say? 13 years?
yeah, it's over 13 years. Yeah.
Yay, Charlene. Yay. That's awesome. I'm so proud of you. That's awesome.
Yeah. So that took a lot of like, I had to break ties. When you get sober, you have to literally break ties with the people you use with,
Yeah. Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
If they don't want to come on if they don't want to hang out with you when you're sober and do sober things with you, they don't really have a place in your life.
Yeah.
And the same with the music you listen to. Some of that music is talking about alcohol and
Yeah.
drugs, and we don't comprehend the effect that has on us. So
Yeah.
that's something that's really important to stay conscious of in sobriety.
You have to completely overhaul your life. Everything you do, the people you hang around with, your habits, you have like like a total overhaul.
Yeah.
Like you become a completely different person. So what's your
Yeah.
relationship like now with your kids and your ex-husband and your family, and like what kind of relationship do you have now with them?
Okay, so we had gotten back together.
Oh,
Yeah. We got back together after like 4 months back
okay.
then, and tried to make it work for a long time. Finally ended in 2018.
Oh,
And
wow. Okay.
it was a difficult divorce, and still, trying to find myself as a single person, and trying to be responsible for myself, and just cut the cords there. I really need some space the last few years. My
Right.
kids are 18 and 22 now.
And what's your
They were
relationship with them like?
very good, very good.
Yay, I love to hear that. That's
Yeah,
awesome.
yeah.
Good.
They were 5 and 8 when I got sober.
Okay.
And
Okay.
so, I definitely had, they went through some, especially like, well, one of my kids needed some therapy just to be able to, because I was worried that they weren't going to be adjusted because
Right.
of how I was. I didn't know the damage I had done. So, I it made sense to get help for the whole family when it comes
Right.
to, therapy and stuff like that. I wasn't the only one that needed to be treated. Sometimes the people around you need to be treated
Sure.
too. As you
Sure.
know, going to
Yeah.
Al-Anon, that,
Yeah.
other people get affected.
Yeah.
So, um,
Absolutely.
but
So
now,
what was your marriage like? I mean, I know your marriage ended, but what was it like as because you were a sober woman when you guys went back to bat the second time? So your marriage must have been completely different then, wasn't it?
yeah, but I don't, we stopped going out altogether. I think we
Oh,
had two dates in those years
gotcha.
afterwards.
Gotcha.
So,
Oh, I gotcha.
um,
And you're doing well now. You look amazing. I watch you on Instagram and I see some of your reels and your boomerangs, and I'm like, oh, look, oh, because you're all like smiling and healthy and happy. So you
yeah,
seem like you're doing very well now,
yep.
completely sober. Back on a health kick. Are we eating healthy now and doing all healthy things again?
I am having a hard time with that right now. I did try to get back to that in the last year. Um, and COVID comes in the
Right.
door, right? When COVID came in, I was working at a metaphysical store, and I was doing
Oh,
card readings, and I was around the stuff that I love to do. And then COVID happened and everything shut down. And I was isolated. And they say the worst thing for an alcoholic is isolation, right?
oh,
So
right.
I spent a lot of time at home alone. My son comes here on the regular. He's with me still. He's 18. So
Hmm,
he was here, but he
good.
was pretty much the only person that I saw during COVID because my daughter was away at college. And I got a dog.
Yeah,
he,
dog.
he
Dogs
was
are good
awesome.
company.
So I actually got to meet a lot of my neighbors, and I sat at the beach every day, and you know I did get out and walk every day. Right now, I recently got a job where I'm walking all day, and I get about
Good.
50,000 steps in a day.
Holy crap.
Yeah,
That's a lot. Well, that's good though. Good
yeah.
stuff. So I love your healing journey, and I'm glad that you're sober and you're um taking better care of yourself. So um could we, because we are going to wrap this up a little bit here pretty soon. So when you look back and think about your years as an alcoholic and then a drug addict, and then we have to deal with, our low self-esteem and our low self-confidence and all that stuff, what tools did you use to help you? Because dealing with the alcoholism is one thing, and then dealing with the drugs is nothing, but it's actually dealing with the wound inside is a totally different thing. So how is the healing journey for that, to dig down and find your self-respect and self-confidence and self-worth and all of those things again? How is that like for you?
So I tried to do some AA steps. My fourth step, I started to write about that person who sexually abused me.
Right.
And I just, racking tears came out of my body. I was shaking so hard. I
Oh
had no
wow.
idea that was wrapped up inside of me. Um, and I stopped with the steps at that point. I was going to therapy. I went to therapy for 5 years. Um,
Wow.
and I talked about some of the things. She gave me a lot of exercises to do. I also went through marriage counseling a couple times, took a lot of good information from that. A
Good.
lot of self-respect was born out of that.
Good.
Learning how to deal with things, learning how to let go, really learning in the spiritual groups how to process some of my trauma. I became a Reiki master.
Oh,
Uh,
cool. I didn't know that.
yeah, yeah, I'm a Reiki
Wow.
master. I I worked out. I went to. I always find something um, to help heal myself, and then turn around and help other people with it.
Right.
So I became a Reiki master, and I gave myself self treatment every day,
Nice.
years and years, and I still do it now. Um, but also, I also did treatments for other people, um, and that really helps open up some of the things that you hide inside. They're kind of stored in your chakra system, right?
Yeah.
I found that it was kind of an up and down road. I would do work on myself in groups, mindset work with different groups, spirituality, working with different modalities, um, healing with the angels, all kinds of different things. I,
Nice.
I tried everything. I got certifications in a lot of things, but as a way to help myself heal. So mindset work is so important.
Yeah, it
Who
is.
we think we are comes from our past, but who we truly are is always within our heart, right?
Right.
And it's learning how to tap into that and know that we are divine, right?
Yeah. Oh, we are way larger than we give ourselves credit for.
Yeah.
Way larger. We are like these magnificent stars with in a body. Yeah, and people, and we totally undermined ourselves. Like we're greater than, yeah. I like to listen to Abraham Hicks a lot. listen to her, and she's just like, oh, you are, you're amazing. I'm like, yes, I am, damn it, I'm amazing. Because she's really good for the ego, but it really just makes you realize that you are far greater than you give yourself credit for. Like, you're not just a secretary, you're not just a mom, you're not just a waitress, you're not just a, you are like this magnificent being, and so many of us just don't realize that.
Yeah.
So, if you had to, so we're going to wrap this up, and I just want to ask one question. If you had, for any woman who's watching this now who is dealing with, trying to stay sober, or having self-esteem, self-confidence issues because of alcoholism or drug addiction, and is on her way to becoming sober or whatever, what one piece of advice would you give to any woman watching right now who needs help and needs a tool to like help her get there?
Okay. So the advice I would give is take all the help you can get. Don't shy away from anything that you learn about, because I believe that the things that are put in front of you are choices for you to explore.
Mm-hmm.
Um, they're there specifically for you. You know,
Right.
being an angel card reader, you know that sometimes the things that come out of your mouth, you're not quite sure where they come from, but you
Yeah.
know they're a message for somebody.
Yeah.
Believe that those messages sometimes come from normal people. And sometimes they're a message from your spiritual guides or your God or whatever it is that you call, and they're delivering solutions for you. And to be open-minded to those solutions, be open-minded to the synchronicities that happen for you, and for the possibilities for your life. Because where you are right now, if you're trying to get sober, or you have had a difficult time in your life and you're not sure how to get through it, there are possibilities that you don't even know about. And just know that we know they're there for you, and
Mm-hmm.
they're going to present themselves to you through different avenues.
Yeah.
And just be open to everything you're exposed to, and give it a try.
I think a lot of people are afraid of that because we hear our intuition, we hear our gut, like we hear what they're saying, and it's sometimes what they say is kind of scary, right? So we're like, oh my God, no, I can't do that. It's too scary. And we just ignore it. We completely, no, I can't do that. That message wasn't for me. No, 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 that's not me. So, and another thing you said was to reach out and help and get help. And I think another thing which is important, is that a lot of people don't want to ask for help or get help. I don't want to bother anybody. I know everybody has their own problems. They don't need to listen to me, and I can't bother anybody. People want to help. Like, people love helping. And I think people need to realize that you're not bothering anybody. Like, people don't know if you're going through a hard time unless you tell them. And
Yeah.
then when you tell them, they're gonna be like, oh my God, why didn't you tell me sooner? I know this person, or I can help you this way. So I think being open to help is very, very important. That was a very good point that you made, and to listen to your intuition, because people don't want to do that because it's scary. It
But we
is.
want to stay in our comfort zone, which is
Yeah,
actually really uncomfortable,
sure.
right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's a icky place. It's just boring and nothing ever changes. You got to
Mhm.
get out of there. So thank you so much, Charlene, for your sharing your story, and your healing journey. And I'm sure that there's at least one person out there that's heard your story that is inspired by your healing and your sobriety. I know I am. So
Mhm.
thank you very, very much. And I wish you the very best on your continued sobriety and your healing journey.
Thank you.
Thank you
Thanks for
so
having
much.
me.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye-bye.